Welcome back. Today I'm going to take a look at the rapid game that I played on Lichess last night. It felt like one of those games where you never do anything wrong and every move that you make seems like the best move in the position, but then your opponent just slowly gets an advantage and then there's nothing you can do about it. And so I ran the little game review that they have on Lichess, and I was prepared to be disappointed and see that, my opponent hadn't made any mistakes, so there really wasn't going to be anything for me to learn from. But when I did run it, it showed that my opponent had made plenty of mistakes. Down here, you can see that I made 5 blunders and a mistake. My opponent made 4 blunders and 3 mistakes. And apparently I got a pretty big lead right out of the opening, so hopefully there will be something for us to learn from. Neither one of us messed up in the first 9 moves, according to this. I did play the French defense again. I'm still learning this defense. I don't yet know all the ins and outs. And when my opponent plays an unexpected move at some point, I'm not sure what to do about it. Here it says I did have it in accuracy on move 10, but then my opponent responded with a mistake, and it looks like I was ahead for quite some time. So we're going to go to that, which I think was the inaccuracy and then the mistake that followed. And as difficult as it is for me, I'm going to try to focus only on those peaks, those, sharp ups and downs. I'm always tempted and fall into the habit of going through every single move of the game and seeing if I could have made something slightly better. But what happens there is not only does the video in this session take way too long, but then at the end I feel like it's just, one big blur. And so I want to focus on just these highlights. Okay, so here in this position, my opponent had just pinned this knight, and I played bishop to a6, which was counted as inaccurate. I had something better. I know it says right there in the move list what I should have played, and I'm trying hard not to look at it. It seems like one of the moves that I considered here was c5, because, it's defended by the pawn and the bishop and the knight, but I don't want to use the knight to take it because my knight's, helping to defend the other knight. But that square's pretty well defended, and it gives me the opportunity to get my queen out to c7 where the pawn is now. The only other thing I'm going to guess that the engine might have said is h6, because it often recommends that here. And then it always says, oh, and then the opponent will bring the bishop back. But in real life, when I play that, they always go here. And then I never know whether I'm supposed to play the g5 or not and keep chasing it, or just leave h6 there. But I am going to guess either h6 or c5. Let's turn this on. Well, I was incorrect. It was c6 or bishop to b7. Those are the top 2. There might be other moves that aren't bad either. Okay, I just realized one downside of c5 is that this pawn up here is only defended by the knight. And if they take, or they could take that front pawn with their bishop, and then my knight over here is pinned. Okay, I think I understand that. So c6 makes sense. That gives an extra defender to the d pawn, and it still allows my queen to get out, to c7 like I was talking about. c6 makes sense. I think b7 has the same idea of defending that pawn, but then my problem with that is that it's just pointed at that pawn. And the reason that I went ahead and put it over here on a6 instead of b7 was because it's pointing somewhere. And right now their queen's the only thing defending that knight, so the queen kind of has to hang around there, is what I thought. But I'm pretty sure my opponent's mistake was not taking this pawn. But let's see. Yeah, okay. I was right. That was the problem in this position, is that this pawn was only defended by the knight. Okay, that makes sense. I understand this inaccuracy, but that was my opponent's only good response to it. And I have played a bunch of opponents that would have found that, so I guess I should consider myself lucky that this opponent did not find that, and they rerouted their bishop. I'm guessing they were coming this way, trying to hit down here. Or I guess it could have been a misclick. They might have meant to put their queen there and had selected the wrong piece. I'm not sure. My advantage continued to accrue until a few moves later here where I made a mistake. It says my next move was taking their bishop, and I should not have taken their bishop. I probably should have pushed the pawn. I left the lines on, I'm pretty sure, but I haven't looked at them. If I shouldn't have taken the bishop, I'm guessing I should have pushed the pawn. Yeah, c4 was my best move here. Okay. Or just dropping the bishop back. Now that I'm not sure why. I know that originally, the engine wanted my bishop here on b7, but again, it's pointed at that pawn. And here, what's wrong with it being here? It's defended. This pawn's defended. Everything's defended except my d pawn, which I actually know that's defended too. Never mind. Okay, I guessed c4. That makes sense. All right, I'm going to turn off the lines. But then over here, my opponent messed up after this position, and they played knight to g3. And I'm guessing they should have played the pawn forward to keep me from playing my pawn forward. I think they should have probably played c4. Oh, c4 would have been fine for them, or knight to d2. Oh, getting the other knight out, which would have defended that square. I'm not sure why knight to d2 is better. And it's as if they had played that, I would have played g6. I'm pretty sure I would not have played g6. I'm not sure why I would have, but that's what it says. Okay. But then about 9 moves later, they blundered here, and I missed something big. I blundered right back by playing queen to c6. I think the reason that I played queen to c6 is because I saw a big incoming fork here. We're even on material. I feel like I have a little bit more space than they do, but I brought my queen back to defend against this. Because, yeah, I mean, that's a big fork, right? And I didn't want to, move my rook over because then they would have had a check. What should I have done instead of bringing the queen back? I guess I could have put the bishop here on c5, which would have defended the forking square and attacked the rook, but I'm not sure. What should have played knight to e4? Okay, that also defends the forking square as well as attacking the queen, or bishop to c5. Okay, that probably would have been counted as inaccurate, but it would have worked. But this was better because it attacks the queen and keeps them from going there. And if they do go there, I just get a free knight, but they're probably going to move the queen. It says they would go to f4. I don't know if they would have gone to f4, but if they did, then it says I would have captured on f2 with my bishop. Oh, because it would have been protected by the knight. Wait, no, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have done that because they would have taken, and if I took with my knight, they would have taken with their king, and they would have picked up 2 of my pieces for the rook and the pawn. And their queen would be, oh, then no, they wouldn't because I would get their queen. Wait, if I had played here, it's their best move. Well, let's say my opponent had found this, thinking they're pinning the knight, but then I would take here, they would take here, and I wouldn't take there because then they would get my queen. Oh, so I just gave up a bishop for a pawn. Then how am I ahead? Because the knight's hanging now. Oh, and they're probably not going to block because, well, they might. Why wouldn't they block? They could, but that would be worse. I would just take their rook and then they would take with the queen and then I would drop back one and with check, and when they blocked with the queen, I would get this rook. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, all that's really, really high level to me. That's not even an intermediate blunder. I think this is an advanced level blunder that I didn't see that this is better. And apparently it's only better if I'm prepared to go through all that mess down there, first giving up the bishop, but then, getting the knight. That seems pretty complicated. Okay, but a couple of moves later, we had another problem. After I did this blunder, which again was blocking this, my opponent blundered right back, and then I played bishop to c7, which I thought was offering the rook trade, but that was a blunder. I left the lines on, but I should not have played bishop to c7. Oh, okay, now here, I bet it's this. Okay, I get this one, because even if they just take it, I get their rook. Is that, oh no, that's not it. Well, that seems like a good idea. It's my second best move, but it's only half as good as the best move, which is again, knight to e4. And the engine thinks that my opponent would respond by not moving their queen, but instead by taking this bishop. I guess because then I wouldn't take their queen because they would take mine. If I had played knight to e4, yeah, their best move is to take here. Their second best move is to put the knight on d4, both of which threaten my queen, one of which picks up a piece, but I would still be way ahead. Okay, so if they took here, then I would get their rook for the bishop, and then they would move their queen because of where my knight is. But now they're not going to go here because before they were going there to pin it because of where my queen was. Their best move is to take the free pawn. Okay, I see that, and I'm ahead because of this. And they're not going to take it. Okay, because if they take it, I get their knight. Oh, wow. Okay, again, that's a pretty high-level blunder because what I played here was bishop to c7. Was it their best move to trade? It was. Okay. And that's where we went back to even. And then we were even for a long time. We had a couple of inaccuracies in here, but we're very close to 0 throughout this entire section for, what, 20-something moves? Still even. We're still, looks like 10 moves before these blunders here. 10 or 11 moves, okay. I got one of their pawns, they got one of my pawns. I thought this was going to be a draw, but apparently right down here, I messed up right here. I had to do something else. What did I play? I played knight to c4 check. That's the blunder that almost lost me the game, but not quite. I had 2 more after this. Well, I thought I was already losing here because I had somehow allowed them to take this pawn. But apparently we're even if I don't check them here. It's not over there, is it? No, it's a king move. Okay, sorry, I glanced at the lines as I was asking the question because I couldn't figure it out. E5 or E6? Well, E5 just looks like it's asking to get checked by their pawn, who's been waiting patiently to join everyone else in this game. Their F2 pawn that I was supposed to take 30 moves ago is still there, has not moved. Only thing on the entire board that hasn't moved, it's the very last piece, and I'm pretty sure that if I moved my king over, that pawn would jump into action. But it says it wouldn't. Okay. I guess the point of playing to e6 is that if they check me, then I can move over, and I'm defending my g-pawn. But I don't know what the purpose of this is other than baiting them to play that, which it seems like they want to. And then I would have to go to e6. But it says that if I went to e5, they would not play that pawn. Why wouldn't they play that pawn? They would, and then I would have to go to e6. and then they would check me, and then I would go to f6 so I can protect this pawn. But now they can check me again if they want, but they're not going to, because I guess I could just go further back. And the engine here would play king to e2, going backward, or king to d4, coming forward, but I don't know why. All right, so this is the blunder that could have lost me the game if my opponent had gone forward with the king or sideways with the king. But instead they... Wait, did I read that wrong? Oh, okay, they only had the huge advantage if they went forward. Going sideways takes us back to even. Okay, so does king to e2, which it says also takes us back to even. So they had to go forward, I guess, maybe to come after this other pawn. But going there is bad because I can stay even by moving over or coming back. Well, that's what I should have done earlier, but I didn't. But I stayed pretty close to even by just putting my knight there and checking them. And now they came forward, which is one of their two best moves. E2 is still one of their moves. They can just go backward and they'll be fine. And coming forward is fine. But here I had to go back to e6. Anything else is bad. Well, I played the bad move then. I played my second best move because I thought, oh, maybe they'll mess up going for my pawn and I'll get one of theirs. And that's actually their best move, to go forward here to get my other pawn while I get theirs. It says I wouldn't take theirs. It says if they moved forward, I would just move this pawn forward, but I wouldn't. I would take their pawn. But anyway, they went backward, which is even again, because I can check them again, or play king to e6, but I played king to e5, which apparently is also okay. They brought their knight back, and we're close to even again. Also, these are high-level blunders. These are not intermediate or elementary blunders because I don't understand them at all. All right, so we made it here, and I should not have traded knights because that's what I did. And again, I forgot and left the lines on, and the move is right there saying what I should have played. I should have played knight to d8 or knight to c5. Either one of those would have been fine. I think the problem with taking the knight is that they don't have to take with the pawn. They can take with the king. I'm pretty sure that when I played here, I thought they would take with the pawn and it would double their pawns, but they don't have to take with the pawn. The other thing here is this is one of those games where even though I felt like I'm moving at about the same pace or the same rate as my opponent, time-wise, when I looked at my clock, I realized I'm like 3 minutes behind. In fact, the first half of the game, I thought I was moving faster than they were. It felt like I was. It felt like they would make a move and I would see, oh, this seems like an obvious response, and I would just respond immediately and then wait for them. And then when they moved, by the time that they moved, I had had a chance to consider my move, so I was moving really quickly, but then when I looked and realized I was down 3 minutes, I started moving more quickly over these last, 10 or 15 moves. But yeah, I had to save the knight. c5, d8. Maybe other things. I don't know. Would f8 have been really bad? No, f8 would have been fine too. Okay. What about g7? Nope, g7 would have been bad. Even though it's protecting a square they were about to move a pawn to, helping protect that square with this pawn. Wait, what about c7? Would that have been bad? Nope, that would have been fine too. All of those squares would have been fine. Okay, well, the only one I knew for sure was bad was this one. The knight has, obviously lots of places it can go. Well, I apologize for wasting your time, but at this point, my opponent had a mating sequence. I didn't realize it yet. As we started moving, my opponent was able to take all my pawns and promote a queen. And in fact, if I remember right, they promoted 2 queens. Yeah, they sure did. I don't know why. I don't know why people promote 2 queens, because you don't need to. If the other person doesn't have any pieces or pawns, you just need 1. But this one needed 2, which tells me they haven't studied end games, but apparently they've studied these middle games and tactics, because this part they played really well. They missed a couple of things, just like I did, but they didn't miss that one. If they had taken with the pawn, would it have been bad? When I took here, yep. If they had taken with the pawn, it would have been even. Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, if any of you understand any of those blunders, feel free to let me know in the comments, or at least give me the gist of why you think it would have been a blunder. The only reason I know any of them were blunders is because I lost. I mean, that's the only part of it that I understand. This is a blunder because it led to you losing. But I need more than that if I'm going to get better at chess. I need something like, this is a blunder because it allows them to move this pawn up, which allows them to put their queen where the pawn used to be, which allows them to pressure your, that kind of thing. I need a chain of events, a cause and effect. Whereas this is a blunder and then you lost. That's too far of a distance between the cause and the effect. But how did that blunder cause me to lose? This one I think I understand here. But as you saw, playing here would be a blunder, but not here. So can you tell me the difference between those two moves? I know that this one protects this pawn, but this one protects where their pawn wants to go and protects that pawn. So why is it a problem, right? So what's the difference between those two moves? One's good, one's bad. Or this one, and this one, all of which were good, but not that one. Either way, if you made it this far, I appreciate you spending your time here. Thank you, and I will see you next time.